Story 1. Anytime someone puts on their online profile under education something like schooled on the street or educated by the school of hard knocks. Story 2. People who expect you to disprove their assertions, which are typically unfounded nonsense, instead of providing actual evidence to support their claims can be frustrating. I had a coworker discussing things that had already been disproven, such as the story about cat litter boxes in schools for children who identify as cats, as if they were completely factual. I confronted her about it, and she looked at me and asked, "Are you calling my cousin a liar?" I don't know her cousin and have no interest in her. So I replied, "Yes, I am calling your cousin a liar. She has no idea what she's talking about." Story 3. A strange situation arises when someone denies the existence of a scientific phenomenon simply because they have never heard of it before. A prime example is evolution. I often hear, "Evolution isn't real because my family and I, or my grandparents, have never heard of any animals evolving." Story 4. Being rude does not make someone an alpha male or strong and independent. It simply shows that they have never learned how to treat people with basic human decency. It's not beta or submissive to be kind to others. Story 5. Someone who doesn't ask questions is missing an opportunity for growth. Engaging the mind on any topic with the intention of understanding is a sign of intelligence. Some of the most intelligent people I have met ask seemingly simple questions, followed by more thoughtful inquiries, and then by insightful questions. Knowledge builds upon itself. Story 6. When writing a formal letter, some individuals may resort to overly elaborate language, viewing it as a mark of formality. This approach can resemble a middle school student attempting to incorporate as many vocabulary words as possible into an essay. In contrast, professionals are more mindful of word economy. They focus on the subject at hand and utilize straightforward sentences. Story 7. An unwillingness to change your mind means you haven't been challenged to try to understand opposing ideas. Story 8. When someone suggests that educated individuals refrain from using foul language, it's evident they may not have spent much time on a university campus. This is particularly relevant when people doubt my identity as an engineer due to my choice of words. Anyone who has spent time near the engineering faculty at a typical university knows that engineers are some of the most outspoken students on campus. Story 9. Being a flat earther. Most conspiracy theory beliefs demonstrate an inability to apply reasonable logic or to seek and verify reliable information. Story 10. Inability to think ahead more than 2 steps. It is not just hating taxes but wanting zero taxes, which would result in no roads, public schools, libraries, or other essential services. Their logic only goes so far and they cannot see the bigger picture. Story 11. When someone tells me that I use words that are too big for them to understand, I realize that my vocabulary isn't huge. I just know how to communicate effectively. Story 12. When someone believes in a conspiracy theory because the government says otherwise, it can lead to irrational opinions. I encountered a girl in high school who was an anti-vaccine advocate, traveling around the country during her education. I argued with her daily, as I am supportive of vaccinations. One of the most nonsensical things she claimed was that vaccines exist because the government wants to control or eliminate us due to overpopulation. I live in Australia, one of the smallest populations in the world for a country the size of the United States and almost all of Europe. Story 13. I dated a girl for a while who pronounced it espresso, and I felt a little disappointed each time. She was attractive, though. Story 14. I was watching television with my sister, and there was a scene with many extras walking around in the background since the show is set in New York City. My sister turned to me and asked, "How can they shoot that scene with so many people walking around?" I looked at her in surprise and replied, "Sister, you know they are extras, right? It's a movie set and those background people chose to be there." My sister didn't know that movie scenes and television shows pay individuals to walk around in the background. Story 15. Shouting one's view in a discussion essentially turns a normal civilized conversation into an argument. Story 16. Believing the earth is flat, believing in chemtrails, and thinking the government contaminates our water to manipulate us are all part of the typical conspiracy theory narrative. Story 17. Certainty. Knowledgeable individuals discuss their observations, readings, or research and provide caveats throughout their statements. In contrast, uneducated individuals often exhibit more certainty in their information and adhere to what they believe they know, even when faced with new information. Story 18. People who make strong claims without any evidence to support them should recognize that free speech does not imply that ignorance is a valid opinion. Story 19. The belief in conspiracy theories suggests that a significant number of low-paid individuals would either lie or remain silent. Story 20. Making excessive noise, such as speaking unnecessarily loudly, driving vehicles with modified exhaust systems, or playing loud music, demonstrates a disregard for the comfort and needs of others, which is a clear indicator of a lack of education. Story 21. Being overly confident in a subject you clearly do not know much about can be misleading. When people exhibit confidence about a topic but express ideas that are nonsensical or entirely incorrect, it creates confusion. Story 22. When someone bases everything around guns or labels a place as a communist country when it is far from that. Story 23. People who buy things to show off their wealth are asking to be robbed. Furthermore, truly wealthy individuals tend to spend very little. Often, they are only marginally affluent, having financed their cars and put expenses on multiple credit cards. If they miss a payment, they could face serious financial difficulties. Story 24. Long eagle claw fingernails, stickers, and signs hint at gun ownership and a tendency toward gun violence for various reasons. Story 25. Ironically, the ability to say, "I don't know," is important. If someone clearly attempts to act like they know more than they actually do, I assume they lack the ability to learn new things. Conversely, if someone acknowledges a problem and states, "I don't know enough about this subject," I assume they are open to learning more. This willingness to learn is often found in educated individuals. Story 26. 2 master's degrees and frequent social media posts about exciting new business opportunities for only $20 that will make you wealthy without having to work. Seriously, Emily, what is going on? Story 27. To me, the best sign of being uneducated is using poor grammar, misspelled words, and an inability to express yourself in your writing. Story 28. People who proclaim they know everything are often experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect. Story 29. Any comment on social media that suggests all you have to do is oversimplifies the complexities of a specific field. Those knowledgeable in that area know there is often much more involved than the simplistic solutions proposed. Story 30. Doubling down and resorting to insults or labeling opponents as evil when presented with conclusive evidence that their opinion or claim is false. Story 31. When angered, they may enter a state of confusion and start repeating the same words and phrases repeatedly. They often speak over others when they hear information that contradicts their beliefs. They struggle to draw conclusions and instead pester individuals with continuous follow-up questions, asking, "What do you mean?" Story 32. Having a successful business with 2 employees in the office who have received an education but cannot fix a leak if their lives depended on it. Story 33. Take back control of our borders. The government has always had control. The migrants are not the enemy. Your government is. Story 34. I would like to express my belief in religion. However, I know many individuals with doctoral degrees who are Buddhist or Christian. Story 35. High levels of confidence exist across several subjects, with no interest in testing their positions. I have a master's degree and previously worked in management consulting. I disliked giving advice because any conclusion I reached had many competing alternatives with unknown factors involved. Additionally, the profit motive of the firm often created conflict between answers that addressed core needs and those driven by selfish profit motives, such as recommending a product that paid us a commission versus one that did not. Story 36. Someone who is confrontational and unknowledgeable. It is acceptable to lack knowledge. Not everyone can know everything. However, a person who is unaware and reacts aggressively out of ignorance indicates they have likely never engaged in an intelligent conversation, which can be intimidating to them. Story 37. Lack of critical thinking. inability to reflect and recognize their own errors, inability to infer from other information, frequent vocabulary misuse, and obsession with trivial topics. Story 38. When they are so sure about what they are saying and still contradict their statements mid-conversation. They get angry if someone disapproves. Story 39. Thinking they know everything about everything. I have learned to distrust anyone who claims they have seen the light. No matter the subject, whether it is political, religious, scientific, or any other, I have come to understand that truly knowledgeable people will often be the first to say that they do not know. True knowledge is humbling, as the more you know, the less you know, and answers always lead to more new questions, not to a know-it-all mentality. That is why a true scientist is never satisfied, since even perfect research leads to more questions. Fear of doubt often originates from a lack of self-education. My younger brother thinks he knows it all. A 21-year-old philosopher on YouTube who believes that just because he has formed an opinion, he is right. The point is that it is childish and reflects a lack of self-education. The more you know, the more you will find that you know nothing. Story 40. Having total certainty about the correctness of your opinions, especially on complicated topics like history, can be misleading. The more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know. Story 41. Flat Earthers. I didn't realize how many there were until I joined a Facebook group called Stop the Flat Earth Madness. Honestly, they are unbelievable. Story 42. Coworkers who intentionally complicate the process and make it more dangerous because they have always done it that way. Story 43. Flat Earth, autism vaccination, conspiracy theories. Do your own research, attempting to address off-topic questions that scientists have already answered. Story 44. Refusing to consider the possibility that one's opinion could be wrong is common in discussions about identity politics. Do you support Israel? Have you considered that their actions might be causing more harm than good in Palestine, especially when they attack hospitals where Hamas is operating? This may be creating future generations of fighters in Palestine. Do you support Palestine? Have you thought about the consequences of allowing Hamas to maintain military operations inside local schools and hospitals? By doing nothing, you may be indirectly encouraging them to hide behind more innocent civilians. Story 45. An insatiable urge to fix things or to do things your way without adequately understanding the context of the situation often leads to having a solution for a problem before fully grasping the context. This approach results in blindly imposing solutions on others. Once a half-formed idea is launched, nothing can stop it. A lack of curiosity and a know-it-all attitude, driven by a fear of being perceived as imperfect, contribute to this mindset. The priority becomes being right all the time, and the fear of losing self-imposed authority is palpable. Consequently, this mindset leads to a focus on showcasing one's own expertise rather than genuinely understanding the issue at hand. It often results in not truly listening to others and viewing them as inferior. Story 46. When someone is asked a logical question or for proof, and their response is, "I feel," they continue to make their point. Story 47. Worshipping artists is one thing, but being deeply engrossed in a music group at 40 is another. I once dated a woman in her 40s who only talked about K-pop and BTS. It was overwhelming. Story 48. Anyone who thinks that Elon Musk was ever trying to save the world or that he is a genius is displaying ignorance and a lack of awareness. Story 49. An inability to hear something outrageous and not wonder whether there is any actual basis in fact, despite how intriguing the matter might be. For example, senior Democrats are running a child exploitation ring out of a pizza shop basement. Story 50. Speaking with excessive confidence about subjects that relevant experts fiercely disagree on is common. As someone pursuing a doctor of philosophy in moral and political philosophy, I have observed that non-philosophers often take it as obvious that certain claims about the nature or content of morality, such as the assertions that there is no objective morality or that utilitarianism is clearly true, are valid. I am not suggesting that the positions these individuals advocate are not true. They may well be. However, presenting one side of the debate as if anyone who holds a different view has made a fundamental mistake signals unfamiliarity with the current discourse. Intellectual humility is strongly correlated with education, and a failure to exhibit it provides compelling reasons to assume a lack of educational depth. Story 51. Shooting the messenger instead of the facts is a common issue on Reddit. When someone disagrees with my factual account, I often receive downvotes. Story 52. When my date ordered a Caesar salad with ranch dressing, I knew right then she wasn't a member of Mensa. Story 53. When someone says, "I'm not stupid," I usually respond with, "Are you telling me or yourself?" Story 54. Commenting on news or cultural changes by saying, "They say we have to," rather than investigating who is saying it and why. These things do not happen organically. There is always a reason behind them. Story 55. Quoting television and movie logic as if it's real life. We only use 10% of our brain, multiple personality disorder, and the United States won World War II all by ourselves, etc. Story 56. Usually, not knowing things can happen. Not everyone gets the opportunity to learn. However, if you are the kind of person who lacks knowledge but speaks with authority, and then doubles down when corrected and gets angry when proven wrong, that behavior is immature. It is advisable to reflect on your approach. Story 57. Using multisyllabic words incorrectly. Caring about celebrity culture. Consistently buying lottery tickets. Missing teeth and morbid obesity. Taking out payday loans. Story 58. Treating iPhones as the greatest piece of technology created by humans and considering Android as inferior. I love both. Story 59. My brother learns everything online, which is sometimes useful information. The other times, it focuses on how he should live his life. His entire perspective is based on what the most popular YouTuber or podcaster is saying. If you've ever heard someone repeat an online narrative, he embodies that. Story 60. Believing that majoring in dance therapy or psychology is just as challenging as majoring in pre-med or STEM-related fields, including biochemistry, engineering, or mathematics. We may attend the same university, but our educations are vastly different. Story 61. Clearly, many individuals who have never read books on various subjects speak with the authority of experts in several unrelated fields. You would be surprised at how many people with a high school diploma express confidence in areas such as medicine, geopolitics, civics, construction, law, warfare, economics, and trade, despite working at a conveyor belt and having last read Moby Dick in high school. Story 62. The inability to process and understand statistics is frustrating. When I share a statistic and follow it with, "Well, I know someone who," the conversation ends for me. I lose interest and feel disheartened. Story 63. For Americans. Not knowing the name of your governor, senator, representative, county executive, or mayor is concerning. You don't need to know all the representatives for your state. If you just know the one who represents your district, that would be sufficient. Story 64. Making everything political. Democrats, this Republicans that. Blaming the president for everything and using the term "liptered" as if it were a racial slur. Story 65. To me, it's basic geography knowledge. I live in the United Kingdom, and you would be surprised by the number of people who don't know where Spain is or how many continents there are. It's concerning that some people don't know the countries on the same continent as them. Story 66. Watching and believing everything on Fox News and getting your news from YouTubers who conducted research. Story 67. Thinking you have outsmarted a professional. Saying things like you outsmarted a salesperson, you got one over on the plumber, or you convinced the dentist to give you a free cleaning. Story 68. The inability to discuss or consider opposing viewpoints reflects a lack of critical thinking. There is no opportunity for examining the pros and cons of different perspectives. This leads to a situation where individuals defend their position blindly, ignoring other ideas or potential viewpoints. The adoption of hardline stances often results in a defensive response when their worldview is challenged. This phenomenon is common among many individuals, regardless of their educational background, within our university systems today. The great minds of philosophers from ages past would likely be dismayed by what is now deemed education. There is a lack of debate and opposing viewpoints, with an emphasis on conformity rather than open discussion. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.